Hello and welcome to Happy Horror Time. My name is Tim Murdoch.
And my name is Matt Emmer. And if you've ever seen the movie Terrifier, you cannot forget the delightfully kooky cat lady. We are here with the actor who so memorably portrayed this role. She's also been in several other indie horror movies, a variety of theater productions, and has guest starred on TV shows like Law and Order Special Victims Unit and Madam Secretary. Please welcome to the podcast actor, writer, consultant, and trans advocate, Pooya Mohseni.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you for being here with us. We're so excited. I just want to kind of, before we even jump into Terrifier, I just want to kind of go back to the beginning. So you grew up in Iran, correct?
I did.
And then you came to New York City where you attended the Fashion Institute of Technology. Does that mean, were you initially interested in being a fashion designer? How did that lead to kind of pursuing a career in acting?
I wanted to be a fashion designer, but Fashion Institute of Technology, to their shortcoming, they had no openings that semester when my mom and I moved to the States. But the textile department, they had seen my portfolio and they were interested and they contacted us. And that is what actually brought us from Maryland to New York. I mean, I'd only been in the States like about a month and a half at that point. And they contacted us. I still remember the day my parents and I came out of Port Authority in Manhattan, smelled gasoline and listened to car honks and porn shops and concrete. And I was like, this is home.
That was, I thought you were going to say, get me out of here.
No, that was like, it was so like, it just felt so me. I didn't know anything, but you know, sometimes you see something and you're like, oh my God. And that was July of 97.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So when I was 2.
When you were 2. Well, then when you got into, how did that lead to pursuing acting?
Okay. First of all, I think I always wanted to be an actor, but growing up in Iran in a very middle class background, all Iranian parents, they want their children to either be doctors or engineers. So since I didn't want to be either one, the compromise was that I was going to be an architect because I had been a painter and a sketcher since I was born. But I wanted to go to performance arts high school, but that does not have very good standing in Iran. It's kind of like other people's children who can't do anything else supposedly go, which is, you know, all bullshit. But I wanted to go to performance arts high school, and my parents just, they were not going to have any part of that. So when I came to New York and went to FIT, that was the first time that I got to be part of the theater ensemble, which was an extracurricular club at the university. And that was the first time I got to act as an adult. We were an improv group. We did long form improv, comedy, drama, and I loved being part of that. There were also some interesting things that happened regarding me being trans at that time in that school, some things that I very openly talk about. And one of the reasons I also do all the stuff that I do is because I do not want anybody else to go through the same things. I was doing background work on shows like Sex and the City and Now and Again.
Oh, I did it too.
You did too? Oh my God, maybe we were on the same set.
Yeah.
But again, some unkind things happened on set, which was, you know, to put it very, very bluntly, transphobia in different manifestations, and doors closed in my face. And so I just followed the design work that I had done. And I was a textile designer for 6 years. And long and short of the story is that I kind of find my way back into acting about 12 years ago on my terms. For the first few years, I was not out. People did not know that I was trans because of the things that had happened the years prior, until I came out on the day that we were talking about, on Marriage Equality Day.
Yes.
And, you know, I mean, I'm very much that kind of a person. I've never thought of myself as a very brave, courageous person, but I am. Can I curse?
Of course.
Oh my God, please.
But I'm stubborn as fuck.
Stubborn as fuck. SAF, everyone.
SAF. And coming back and finding my way and coming out if you read the story when I talk about coming out, I thought that that was going to be the end of my career, but I was fine with that. I was fine with that.
I just have to say, because I know we talked about this before we started recording, but we did research on you, and reading up on you just was very inspired and touched by your decision to come out publicly on Facebook on the same day, of the 2015 Supreme Court ruling. And, to do it on such a platform like that, I thought it was, very courageous, and I want to applaud you for that. I also just think it's great that you are an advocate for this community. And when you were saying, when you did come out on Facebook that day, what were the effects of that? How did that affect your acting career? Because it sounds like you kind of were able to feel more liberated and, being who you are.
I absolutely felt more liberated. And I think that was what made my fear be settled, because while I thought that, okay, my career is going to be over, because, that could have very well been a possibility, I thought my truth is the most important thing in life that I have always fought for. When I was a child, when I was a teenager, when, just through my whole journey. But also the more important part of that is the kids in our community in general. And life has to have a purpose, and those kids, the younger members of our community, that they're my life, they're my heart, they're my soul. But what happened in my career, I think a whole lot of people that just took me for granted as this tall, lanky, aging beauty, I think they looked at me in a different way, that she might not come across as this person who kind of puts her money where her mouth is, but that action showed them that there's a lot more beyond the hair and the eyebrows and the cheekbones. But I think what it also allowed some people around me to feel, as one person told me once, it gave them permission to be who they were, because I kind of showed them, I'm like, you know what? It's okay to do gutsy things, because then the right people will stand by you. It opened my path to do panels, to talk about my journey. It took the path of other young people to be able to reach me, to ask me questions, to look at my journey, whatever humble experience I may have gained through this journey, to share it with them. I have no regrets. And if the universe was to take my life tomorrow, I have lived a full life, and I'm very grateful for that.
Wow, that's so incredibly beautiful, so incredibly inspiring. We are so grateful to have you on this podcast and to spread this kind of message, for hope and what you stand for. It's just I'm just incredibly touched right now. I feel like I'm going to get emotional, because we are very kind of jokey and comical, and this is such a beautiful moment. Thank you for sharing this on the podcast. I feel like every other question we have doesn't matter. It's thank you and good night.
Thank you so much.
Now Terrifier.
I have that one tear actor thing happening right now.
Oh, I love one tear.
The good soap opera tear. Wow. Well, yes. I mean, that is incredibly inspiring to so many people. And I'm and it's very important to spread this type of message of living your truth. So thank you for spreading that message. I mean, it's I hate to shift gears to Terrifier right after this, but it's but
Terrifier was also an important thing in that journey. And when we talk about it, I will say, and this is a credit to Damien, but absolutely, let's talk about Terrifier. My truth is my truth, and if somebody wants to look up that truth, that is completely easily found on the web.
Yeah. Well, growing up, were you a fan of horror movies like Matt and I? I mean, was there a certain horror film that had an effect on you, or
okay, I have on your radar? I kind of have a push and pull relationship with horror films, because I love them, but I can't watch them. As in, I love them because the adrenaline, the great horror movies that I was growing up with, like The Omen, The Exorcist, Halloween, Those things kind of like form my childhood view of what horror movies are. But I could not watch them at night because every time I watch these movies at night, I could not sleep. I still can't. I love spooky horror movies, but I cannot watch them when it's dark because I spook myself out. I just so and there are many different genres. It's like the Hammer horror films, the slasher horror films of the 80s, the more thriller horror kind of movies, whether it happens to be Hitchcock or Psycho or
psychological.
So many subgenres.
So, I love most of them. Even a part of me like loves the Saw anthology, even though I can't
all
watch
7
it.
of them.
I can't watch it. It's just way too gruesome for me, but I like it. It's like candy for somebody who has blood sugar problem. I'm like, I want it, but I can't have it.
No,
we're guilty of that.
We hear so many different answers to that question from different horror stars, and it's not surprising anymore actually how many people who are in horror movies can't watch horror.
Or just it was not on their radar growing up. Like, but I will say The Exorcist is like the number 1 answer we get.
Yes, great. Yeah, Exorcist. See, my favorite, I'm sorry, I have to always say, is the original Halloween. Like, it just framed my entire love of the genre and like the emotionless mask and someone just following you, and it was so creepy, and everything about it was terrifying to me, and it made me love being terrified.
It's like, I think it completely changed the face and the pace of the modern horror film between Halloween, because going back to Terrifier, there's something extremely creepy about a villain who does not speak.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I watched it last night by myself to refresh my memory for today. And, I turned off the lights, put on the alarm, and I was scared. But I wanted to ask you, how did you first hear of the Terrifier, and what was your audition process like?
So the first audition, the character was described as crazy woman or crazy lady. I was like, oh, sure, this is going to be right up my alley.
You're like, there it is, crazy
lady. There it is. There's, the bane of my existence. And I still remember the studio in New York that I went to audition, and there was a woman after me, which I will get to that point of it. But it's like, so I prepared my scenes. Then it's my time. I go in the room and Damien is there. And one other person was there, but also Phil Falcone was there, who's one of the producers. Phil was also there, and Phil was the person who was reading with me. And there were only 2 scenes at that time. One is the scene, if I remember correctly, one is the scene where I meet Jenna for the first time. It's like, hi, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to scare you. We should do laundry together. So that's
you're the new tenant.
It's like, I'm like, have you met my daughter? This is my daughter, Emily. I'm not even sure if Emily was in that version yet or not. That was one scene. The other one was when the crazy cat lady and the exterminator have the scene where I'm telling him that there's a crazy guy who's killing people, and he thinks it's funny because he's laughing, but it's not funny because they end up dead.
Yes.
How do I remember these lines? I don't know, but it's
that's great. I'm like,
it's a part of my. It's like, I'm like, he thinks it's funny because he's laughing, but it's not funny because they're dead. And so that was the scene, and I remember as I was doing it, and it's like, I'm like, Phil is reading it with me, and I'm going up like against his head, and I'm looking at him. It's like, I'm like, it's not funny. It's not funny at all.
They're like, we've got our crazy lady.
Yeah, but there was a woman right after me. And when I come out and I'm kind of like putting my stuff, I'm like, she's going to get the role, because she had like crazy hair and she was kind of talking to herself and her clothes were a little disheveled. I was like, wow, props, babe, you are really giving it all. So then about a week later, I get an email from Damien. Hi, it's like, I wanted to thank you for the audition, and we really love what you did, and we'd like to offer you the role. And I think at some point I told him, I said, I really thought the person after me was just right, because she just seemed, he's like, there's a difference between playing crazy and being crazy. And that woman was
Yes.
actually crazy.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay, okay. But then before shooting, then Damien reached out to me again and said that I want to develop one of the characters, and I want to develop your character further. What do you want to do? And I said, well, by that point, I played a lot of mother roles. So I said, I seem to really like bring this maternal quality to the screen. So I don't know how we can do something to do with, a mother and a child. And that's how the scenes with the push cart and the Emily and the final scene of the cat lady and Art, that's how they were formed. It was just a couple of, mini emails back and forth between Damien and I, and he wrote and molded that scene. And I also, not to say that Terrifier itself is not a unique movie, but I think that scene, that final scene between the cat lady and Art, just sets this movie apart from other generic slasher horror movies, because it just gives you something else. It's not just the damsels running, but you also get to have this very weird, extremely creepy scene between these two kind of unhinged characters. And you kind of feel that there's a connection, there's a human connection, like you can feel it as an audience. But then, then the rest of the movie happens.
Well, it's so funny that you're bringing it up, because we definitely have questions about that scene and others, but I think it's so interesting that, Damien Leon's because of your audition, wanted to enhance that role and adding, scenes onto it for you, which is incredible. I was wondering, did he give you any sort of backstory for the character, or did you create one for yourself just to kind of understand her better?
No, I created it because there wasn't one, and in the script there is nowhere. I did it because I also didn't want to play, this crazy one like, hi, how are you? For me, it was so much. I wanted to give respect to that character.
Did you go back and watch the short film Terrifier, or see All Hallows Eve, or? I mean,
I did not.
So
I did not. I could not. However, I'm a huge David Lynch fan, and in a way, like, she kind of struck me as one or two of the characters in the Twin Peaks genre.
Which characters?
The log lady.
I loved
the log lady.
Oh yes. Okay, yeah.
But then again, the last season, not the redo, but the original Twin Peaks, the last season, everybody was a little crazy. So, like, I pick and chose. But the story that I created for my character was that this was a woman who was about to give birth, and she was in an accident. And when she came to, she had lost a child, and she couldn't come to terms with the reality of that. And so she had a mental breakdown, and she created this whole reality where the child was alive. And her kind of like naivete comes from that everything she sees is through this kind of like, rainbow glasses that, oh, hi, you've come into my world, until, kind of like the walls start breaking, and she just starts seeing that is not the world that she's living in. But Damien gave me room to do that.
That's awesome. And speaking of that kind of very tender yet creepy scene in the movie where you ask Art, who literally is this brutal serial killer, who I think you just watched him shoot Tara in the face like 5 times, if there's any kindness in him and if he's ever felt a mother's touch, and then you kind of take him in your arms and he starts sucking his thumb. What do you think was kind of meant by the scene in terms of, do you think Art could be missing a maternal figure in his life? Maybe that led him down this dark path, or do you think he was just kind of playing along, considering he murders you a few minutes later? But
see, whatever I say is obviously just my interpretation of the scene, of how I did it, is that from the point of view of the woman, it's like this is the most important thing that she has in her world, which is that doll. Mm-hmm. And the only thing that she has to give is her maternal love. She has nothing else to give. And she is giving that. Mm-hmm. It's almost like, in a way, it's not so surprising that she gets killed, because if you think of it, what she's really doing in that scene, she's trading her life for Emily's. As crazy as that may seem, but to her, like, I don't think that she thinks that she's not going to be killed. But I feel that what she's giving is that you can take me. Mm-hmm. Like, that's, I have seen that scene so many times because it's on my reel, it's on my Instagram. I've had other people post me, and I feel is that even in her madness, what she's really doing, she's trading, because Emily is so much more important to her than her life. And that's all she has to offer, art. Now, we could have all of these backstories of how does art and the lady, and everything I say is just in my head because there's no story about that. And I'm not going to add subplots to Terrifier. It does not need it. But I feel in that moment, they're just two wounded creatures, like two rabid animals in that moment. And
I was just for our listeners who have not seen Terrifier. Well, first off, please go see Terrifier. But secondly, Emily, the child, is actually a doll, and I think we mentioned that, but just so people know, and so that's her attachment is to this doll. Art, the clown, steals the doll and is kind of holding it, and that's when this scene starts. And
by the way, the creepiest thing about the film is that doll.
Where is that doll? Do you have the doll? Did you get to keep it?
No, the doll. Well, no, that thing is probably going to be in Smithsonian someday. I have some of the costume pieces of the crazy lady. But no, that doll, again, Damien's creativity of adding that doll and the way he presents it to the audience. I swear, when I look at it, that doll is creepier than anything else in that movie.
It is creepy. I mean, dolls are creepy.
I'm just gonna say dolls are, yes. Tim and I both feel the same way about dolls. They are creepy as fuck.
I mean, if I would take it if someone gave it to me.
The Emily doll.
Yeah.
Well, so moving on, we have to discuss your murder, because even though it takes place off screen,
by the way, my character is the only person you do not see brutally murder.
And
you are correct.
The murders are so brutal because it's so fresh in my mind.
Yes.
No one just gets like a quick stab. Like everything is so yeah.
No, and I am very thankful we don't see your murder, because Art basically, I think he scalps you and carves off your boobs and torso, if I'm correct.
Yeah. Well, not quite torso, but scalps me and cuts off my breasts. Yeah.
Yes, and I'm just like speaking of
what was your like everyone, I'm guessing, had to be in makeup forever, especially Art, but how long was your experience in the makeup chair
for that specific scene?
Well, the head part wasn't that difficult because it literally just had to be glued on everything else. The prosthetic cut off breast area, now that was a different story. It was, taking it off actually was considerably more difficult than putting it on, because imagine almost like a whole bust being glued to you. And now you're trying to, it's much easier to glue something than unglue it.
Yes.
Well, let's just say between my delicate skin and an industrial glue solvent and a few days of having my entire breast and upper torso area covered in rash. Aside from that, it was just easy.
Oh God!
So it was a pleasant experience.
Walk in the park, yeah. No,
when people see the movie, they do not appreciate that what is only 30 seconds probably took 3 hours to shoot. The most difficult thing about that scene was actually we were shooting it on cold concrete in January, February. And I was naked on the cold concrete with just the thing just covering me. And there's this moment where I'm laying and Damien is stop breathing. I'm I want to, my body's going into hyperventilation. because it was cold. It was like, imagine laying on like a 20-degree concrete, and your body is like hypothermia, hypothermia, hypothermia.
Oh my gosh.
That part was more difficult. But being part of something that has become so incredibly iconic, so much so that I have fans of it messaging me from Russia, from Iran, from Turkey, from Brazil, telling me they watched it. Somebody like emailed me and said, my wife and I watch it all the time. It's so romantic. I'm like, what?
It's a family film.
Oh, definitely. It does. Wow. No, it's amazing. And we love the film. And, we were also lucky enough to have David Howard Thornton on the podcast a few months ago, who, for listeners, plays Art the Clown. And we were just, we feel like he just portrays his villain so well. Like, he's so expressive, and that's what just makes it so creepy. And we were just wondering, what was he like to work with on set? Oh, I
was gonna say, like, obviously maybe laying down and when it's freezing outside is not the most fun story, but was there like a funny story?
Just interacting with him,
I met him the first time I met him, which was the day I was shooting the Jenna scene. The first day I met him, I came into a room and he was sitting there with his eyes closed and like half of the makeup was on. And I have never met this man before. And like, I move around and I say something and suddenly he opens his eyes. So like an entire white face, and suddenly like he's in the costume, but not the full on makeup yet. And that was like, so my introduction to David Howard Thornton.
Oh, wow. That's a good one.
That was amazing. But again, he and I didn't really have any scenes together until the creepy scene that we have at the end. He is a professional. Like, he was a joy to work with. And and this is a testament to his acting, because when I see Art the Clown, I do not see David. And not just because of the makeup, because he as a person is so different.
Yeah.
Also because Art doesn't have a voice. Mm-hmm. So it's very easy for me to just have David and Art, and these are two completely separate entities for me. But after I came out, whatever panels we've done for the movie, he's always just been such an amazing support and friend, and he's such a consummate professional. And I honestly couldn't be happier for him that he's become, he will be remembered as an icon in the horror genre, and nobody can deny that. He's like, he's a more juicy version of Michael Myers and Pennywise combined.
Yeah.
And to just be able to have the story that I was in the first Terrifier, which is definitely going to be an iconic horror slasher film. Yeah. And to have worked with David Howard Thornton is just one of the parts of my career that, is a joy and a privilege that I got to be part of.
It's great that you say that, because when we were talking with them, that's something we said. We said, this is going to be one of those iconic villains that you remember. It truly is, and it's a character created by David, by Damien, by all of the performances in the film that surround it, that has made this character. Even just looking at the DVD cover, he is, I truly believe that Art the Clown looks and acts more creepy and scary than Pennywise or any clown I've seen.
I wasn't scared during it.
I was scared during it at different times, and he's definitely creepy.
So was I.
Yeah. So Pennywise and Tim Curry and Bill Skarsgård, great performances, but there's something about the makeup, the expressions, even the little creepy wave, like every little thing that's added to it just make this character fucking terrifying.
Matt, don't cuss.
I will say, but with that said, Pooya, I want to just applaud your performance in this film, because truly, I feel like obviously there were great performances in this film, but you played this multi-layered character and were able to bring an emotional side to her that, despite her peculiar behavior, and as a viewer, you truly start to feel for this woman, and that is because of your moving performance, truly. And so we just want to applaud you.
That's what I wanted to do because, like, as I said, I can't watch horror films the way other people can, but I wanted to bring what I can as an actor, which was in that moment, that was not a horror film we were doing. In that moment, there was a mother pleading for her child.
Mhm.
And I think that is a credit to Damien, that he had that vision of adding that scene into a film that he'd already written. And to have me in it and whatever it was I did in my audition is like, sure, Pooya, do this. um, and to do it with David, that scene can be moving and creepy and sad and terrifying. Different thoughts that are going, like the person who edits my reel, she's like, as I was going through the scene, I just kept saying, don't hurt Pooya, don't hurt Pooya, don't hurt Pooya. Because you're kind of like, he could just at any moment, also because you're kind of conditioned in the movie, at any moment he can just bring out something and like just stab her eye out.
Yeah.
But
Which I was waiting for. I thought that was going to happen.
I was waiting for it. But it doesn't happen. But then you see that moment of tenderness, and that makes it kind of moving. And you see the two of them together in that moment, and they're intertwined. It almost looks like the statue of what is it? The Virgin Mary and Jesus, kind of like that mother-child visual. I'm gonna get crucified by
I'm Jewish, so I
but that visual of like, a mother and a child, that is a credit to Damien to have that visual, because I will always remember that visual of that scene, that moment where they're kind of like embraced and Art is sucking his thumb. I didn't think of that. It's like, I'm like, sure, yeah, we'll do it. And now you look at it, you're like, oh my God, that thing looks so creepy.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I think that a lot of people, especially people who don't know the horror genre well, can quickly write off a movie because of the gore. Like there could easily be people that say, oh, Terrifier, so much gore. But you don't watch and you see not only are these incredible performances from the villain, the heroines, the supporting cast, but there are moments in here that really have a lot of depth. And I think that's where a lot of people that are like, ew, gore, don't really give this genre a chance. And now I'm getting on my platform for horror.
It's fine. But after the film was finished, was there any type of cast and crew premiere? And what was it like seeing your scene for the first time on a big screen?
Our first premiere was a pretty fancy one, because we were the opening movie at the Film Society Horror Fest at Lincoln Center.
Wow.
So we were the opener. And I had tickets and I had my friends with me, and I was flanked by them. By the way, I could not actually see the movie on a big screen. I had my hand in front of my eyes, especially the saw, the saw carving through scene. I was like, I'm like, is it over? Is that part of it over? Okay. But to be there, and there are like, the theater was packed. And that was a moment that I felt like, yeah, there are all of those people, because I'm a huge horror movie, huge B movie fan, classic movie, going back to like Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee, even further back, 40s and 50s, like The Invisible Man, The Wolf Man, Bela Lugosi, that kind of stuff. And when I saw it and the way people were responding, I'm like, 50 years from now, this movie is going to be seen the same way that those movies are seen now. And it's something that the people who like the genre make it live, keep it alive in their hearts. They talk about it. And I feel that not every movie is going to satisfy everybody, but horror movie fans, they are the most loving. They are the most loyal. They are the most genuine people I have ever had. And this is actually making me very emotional, because in the horror movie fans and the fan messages I have gotten from Terrifier have been some of the kindest messages I have gotten from people from my country, from, my country of birth, from Iran. But also, and this I want to put in there, because one of the fans actually reached out to me and we started talking, over time. But what he told me is, him loving the movie and then finding the actors and then looking me up and then finding that I was trans, that changed his whole point of view about the trans community and trans women in specific. And it allowed him to be more open to one of his children being gender nonconforming.
Wow.
Because he had connected to the film, and then he had found me, and then he had found a respect and love for me as a person, which then allowed him to kind of like have a different look on life. And how can I not be grateful for this vehicle that has allowed me to touch people in that way?
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? I love that you said about horror fans, because really what Tim and I are just horror fans. Like, we do this podcast because
No.
Well, but we just, you know, we absolutely love the genre. We love these films, and getting to speak with people in these films is like the greatest joy for us. And you're right. I think a lot of people, or we could tend to think that horror fans maybe, oh, you love these types of movies, you must be creepy and weird, you know, but they don't know that the people just have a genuine love for these types of
and we really, as you can see, we are overanalyzing like Emily and like, you know, the doll, and like Matt and I talk in length about all these scenes that we, you know, just because.
What do you think Emily thought?
Yeah. Yeah. What's Emily up to today?
Emily, is she still covered in blood?
Yeah, I know.
Do you still keep in touch with the Terrifier people? And are you going to go see Terrifier 2?
Well, do I keep in touch with them? Well, I'm Facebook friends and Instagram friends with all of them.
Awesome.
And they're all amazing people. They are all successful in their own ways. And whenever I see their posts, they're like my family, you know, Jenna, Samantha, David, Michael. Now, we weren't friends before the movie, and also we didn't really have a whole lot of scenes together. So I only had one scene with Michael. I had one scene with David. I had one scene with Jenna. We are definitely in each other's spheres. Terrifier 2, I think I need to kind of like, I was almost in Terrifier 2, but I bowed out.
Wait, please tell us how was.
I will be very honest, because I had asked Damien, I said, I love what you do and who you are and the team you gathered, that I would love to be in number 2. And then he gave me a part, and I read up on it, and it was like a part in a lot of prosthetics. I'm not going to go into detail what the prosthetics were or what scene this character was going to be in. But then the pandemic happened, and I had time to think, and I emailed him back, and I said it was really because of my love for the audience and the fans of the movie. I said, you had created such an incredible character. You and I created this this character dynamic of the cat lady and Emily and her and Art, and that is very special. And if I'm going to come back as a different, less important character that doesn't have that emotional arc in the second one, then I feel like we're shortchanging our audience.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And so that was when I was like I wanted to keep the crazy lady intact, her legacy, my relation with it. So when I said, no, I'm going to gracefully bow out, it wasn't that I don't have faith in his movie or his abilities. It was just that I felt that it would be a disservice to the character we had created, and that we could not top that, because that character just ended up kind of like blowing up in the movie, and the way that it comes across, it just really stands out. So I know that the second one is going to be even more violent.
Yeah.
So we've heard, yes, David Howard Thornton wouldn't tell us much, but we did hear about that, and we're like, whoa.
So I know that much. And I know that I can now watch it at night. So we'll see when I can muster up enough guts.
An afternoon matinee.
I'm thinking daytime screening, outdoor park with many people around.
Yes. None of whom are going to be wearing a mask, because that would freak me out with this setting. I mean, everybody should wear their mask, and that's a great thing. But that would just freak me out.
Totally understand that. I just wanted to talk about, I know that you've been in some other genre films, and I just quickly wanted to ask, like, between, we've looked up at your resume, between things like When Death Calls or Bloody Slumber Party or Lucky or Ghost Source Zero or Teresa and Allison, and you're making a face, but just wanted to see if any of these you enjoyed working on, or which you would recommend the most, I guess.
Do I have to? Okay. Some of those movies that you mentioned, I'm not going to address. I'm just not going to. And I'm not going to say which one, but some of them were not good movies. And I'll be very honest, but I'm not going to pinpoint which one. Some of them were just not good movies, and not like in the way that some people think horror movies are not good movies, but they were not good horror movies. The stories were lazy, or it like had this formula which I don't really find interesting anymore, which the audience is, I don't know, prepubescent boys, and you kind of put tits and ass in it. It's like, between blood, there's like some blood, and then there's a woman laying there in bed fully naked. I wonder who that woman was.
I know which movie you're referring to, because we did do our research.
Don't say it.
I won't say it, but I do know what you're referring to.
Yeah, people look stuff up. But like a movie like Teresa and Allison, the people I got to work with there, they are people that are in my circles that I am friends with, professional friends with, from the director of photography, Jeremiah Kipp, to my co-stars, to Charles Lincoln, who basically created and produced it. I might not get every horror genre, just the same way that I don't get every non-horror script. It's kind of like some stories you understand, some stories you don't understand. But working with those professional people, and like playing a vampire, playing, kind of like a cougar, sexy vampire that I played in Teresa.
I can relate. I
need to.
Tim is a cougar and a vampire.
Cougar and vampire. That's so on brand for you.
Yes.
I love working, and I love collaborating and shooting that movie. Like, the schedule was a little weird, and I remember being covered in fake blood, and it was all stinking everywhere. But it was fun. It was fun shooting it. And I believe it's probably one of the last shoots I ever did that I was completely naked in parts of the scenes. I swear now everybody's going to be like, oh my God. It's like, I do not have like that kind of a body that naked in a movie is like, you're like, damn. My movie is like, oh, she needs to eat a little. But, I can be very truthful about that. I look much better in clothes, believe me. But I have respect for people who have that vision, and like Charles's attention to details so much, even, my character, like having the fake teeth and going and having that molded around my teeth. I love working. I love working with people who have fun with what they're doing, and they want whatever it is that I bring to the picture, which is this combination of mystery and strength, and, if I may be so bold, sex appeal or something like that. And they feel that whatever I bring kind of fits into their story. I love playing, unless it happens to be overtly patriarchal or patronizing or somehow demeaning some marginalized group, which I have been in movies like that, kind of like climbing the ladder in my career. But at this point, I would read a script and I'm like, why are the women so helpless in the script? Why? There's no need. Like, but then what that also does, it attracts me more to people who want to tell those same type of stories, but changing the power dynamic, that the damsel are not necessarily, helpless women like, oh my God, I don't understand where that sound is coming from. Because I mean, let's be honest, that part of the genre is a little tired. Like, why should always women be so helpless?
Oh yeah.
Oh, we've seen plenty.
Oh, plenty and plenty of films. And the funny thing is, when you talk about Terrifier, I feel like you get not one but two heroines, because unfortunately, Jenna's character does get killed. But for the first half of the movie, she is constantly fighting back and doing everything to fight against Art the Clown. And so is Samantha Scafidi, obviously. Whereas it's funny because the men in the film kind of just get killed instantly. So speaking of that, Terrifier specifically has, I feel like, very well developed female characters that are really tough.
And they get killed, but it's like somebody asked me, what is it about? I'm like, it's a horror slasher. 5 go in, none come out. It's kind of like, it's not like, I wonder what happens in this movie. It's called Terrifier. What do you think is going to happen in this movie? But it's unique. Yeah. It's unique. And this is coming from someone who actually cannot watch that many horror films. But the music, the way it's shot, the color, the depth, the feel, it's all Damien.
Yeah, no, it's great. I
and
also
his DP is trusted DP.
Of course, yeah. Also, we also read that you are going to be starring in an upcoming thriller called Heather with Sean Young. Is there anything you can tell us about that movie, or when it's scheduled to be released? Or
first of all, it was in the Deadline article. It was referred to as a trans thriller.
Oh, wow.
There's no such a thing.
Yeah.
There's not a trans thriller. You don't say gay thriller. Well, I mean, you might, but there is
no, you don't say white person thriller.
Yeah, so you don't say white person thriller. You don't say woman thriller. It's a thriller that has a trans character in it.
Exactly. So,
yeah. It's basically a revenge kind of movie.
Mm-hmm.
I unfortunately do not have any scenes with Sean Young, but Sean Young has a couple of scenes with the male lead. It's a revenge movie, so it's kind of like a psychological thriller with a little bit of Saw-ish kind of gore added in.
We'll see it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, well, you're speaking our language.
It's very, and this was like the first feature that I was the star of, and I found the script very moving.
Oh,
because it's about these characters, their past mistakes, their pain, the extents they go to get revenge, and how nothing quite works out the way anybody wants. Again, the genre. It's kind of like, what happens? Well,
you're like 5 go in, none come out.
None come out. In this case, it's kind of like 5 go in, 1 comes out. But who that one is. It was very, if I was going to put it in one word, it's tragic. It's a very tragic story. Mm-hmm. Because while none of the characters are very likable, every character, you could feel their pain and what goes on underneath. And I tried to do as good of a job as I could. My co-star and I, everybody involved. When is it going to come out? That I don't know. I know it's in post-production. They're doing color correction and sound and all of that. We have shot most of it. Hopefully in 2022.
Okay.
We'll see.
No,
we'll see. God willing, universe allowing.
I think Terrifier 2 was originally supposed to come out last year, and then it was put because the pandemic unfortunately has been ruining everything for productions like this. But I also, because as we get toward the end of this, I wanted to give you a chance to talk about your consultant work and what you've been doing in terms of that.
Yes, thank you for that.
Of course.
My consultancy work actually came out of writers reaching out to me because they had a full script, whether it was a short script or a feature script, and they had a trans character that they kind of knew generally where this character lived in the story, but they didn't know how to excavate the role. So then I'd be like, well, maybe this character this could be her journey, and since you've put her in this story, maybe this is how she can kind of move your story forward, because these are the things that are very specific to this character, and this is how you can utilize her best. And that's how it happened. It started from like a short film, then it became a short film that I co-wrote and co-produced and co-starred in. Then it became a feature script that actually won best comedy feature script in LA Film Festival about a month ago.
Oh wow! Congratulations.
Thank you.
What is the name? What is the name of this? Just the short.
The original name was Everybody Hates Cindy Lovelet. That was the original name. The name has
going to say Cyndi Lauper.
Everybody hates Cyndi Lauper.
Cindy Lovelet. I said Cindy Lovelet. But the name has changed since then. And on that one, I was credited as a creative consultant. So I was not a co-writer because it was he had the script, and we would go back and forth about the trans character and how she can be utilized, and then the story around her also kind of like shaped and shifted as she did. So I'm very proud of that. I do that whenever somebody's like, I have this character. I'm like, wow, you brought this character. So this is what we can do. We can fully flesh out this character. And I usually think of it as a game of cards. I'm like, oh, this is the character. I will put these 5 cards in front of you that you can use. You can use whichever one you want and not use whichever one you don't. And what that allows me to do is 2 things. 1, I can make sure that the trans character that is written is fully fleshed out, is multifaceted, is a full human being, and also create bridges between the non-queer community and the queer community in telling stories that are not queer stories or straight stories, but stories that has people from different backgrounds, and every character is fully represented, which for me, like, that's my longer goal, because queer story is great, not queer story is great, but we live in a story where we're not all living on our own individual islands.
Yeah,
we coexist. And I would like there to be a story that your antagonist could be a totally cis hetero character, but they can have fully fleshed out, fully written queer characters that also live in that world without it feeling like, oh, this is the main character and everybody else is just trimming.
Yeah. Wow, that is so important and so needed. What a great role, and to do that's amazing. Yes, no, congrats. That is such a great needed role. So I'm so glad that you're doing this and we got to chat about that. Wow, yeah, that is great. Like I think many people need that type of consultant to develop these characters.
And I feel it's also happening more, especially with bigger shows, where they have characters. And I think that's true about everything, not just the queer community.
Yeah.
Women, immigrants, it's like whatever specific group it is, like the same way that I can't write about uterine cancer because I have no experience of what that would be like. Yeah. I would need somebody who has that information. Think of it this way. It's as simple as a different language. If your character speaks a language that you do not speak, what do? You bring in somebody who does.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And this is that same thing.
Yeah.
And I try to also, one of the things I ask, especially young indie writers, I'm like, I don't care if you pay me on this small project because you have no budget, but I want you to give me credit as either consultant or co-writer, because this can show people that come after that, oh, if I'm writing a story that I don't know exactly how this character does this, I can reach out to someone.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes total sense. We have one final question for you, and it's going to probably put you on the spot a little bit, but we ask this of everyone that we interview. What is one thing that you can tell us about your experience working on Terrifier that you've never told any other interviewer, publication, or podcaster? It can be like any little juicy behind the scenes thing, any little, Easter egg, but something you have never told in any convention, any interview, anything.
I don't know if I've never told anything. All I can say is that Art really did wear my boobs. Because those boobs that Art wears in the, which scene I'm talking about, those were actually plastered after my real tatas.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So there is a
I never knew that. So that's
yeah, there is. I mean, would it have really made a difference? Probably not. If it was not me, but again, that's Damien's like attention to detail. So I imagine there's a plaster bust of me somewhere.
It's with the Emily doll somewhere.
With the Emily doll, someday, like 50 years from now, the vault is gonna open
or it'll be on eBay for $500,000.
Yeah. I don't know. I think people just, to the fans, I want to say, know that the movies that you watch, a movie like Terrifier, a whole lot of people put a whole lot of work, put themselves through a lot of discomfort. Those prosthetics, they seem fun to people who don't do it, but they are not fun. Yeah. When they do like your facial mask, you can't breathe, and it's like the weirdest experience of having a face mold done. I did that for Terrifier too, even though I wasn't in it. The way those things, stick to you. Now, if you're lucky, they can get it off without a problem. If not, it's going to stick to your skin, and that has its own problems. But that we put so much love into creating these stories so you can sit in the dark and almost shit your pants. And when you do that, you show us that what we do is important to you and you care. And I love my horror fans. They are my friends. Sure, some of them are seriously creepy, and probably some of them need therapy. I'm like, I don't know if anybody.
That's Matt.
Shut up.
I love how it's like I'm like, that's Matt, not me. Like sometimes I find it a little weird when somebody tells me I watch Terrifier every week, and I'm like, why?
That's a little much.
I watch it once a year.
But that to me is like the love that somebody has to my work, to our collective work. And as an artist, that is the hugest applause for me. That's something we created that I didn't know it was going to be, I was making an indie horror film 6 years ago, or whenever it was that we shot Terrifier. And that people are still talking about it, that people love it, that it has just changed the landscape of horror slasher films, and people respond to it that way. I want to give the audience out there my gratitude, because our film is so popular because of your love. So what is the one thing I haven't told about Terrifier? You Terrifier audience out there, I love you.
Well, thank you. Seriously, thank you so much. This has been such a touching, inspiring, just amazing interview, really.
Yes,
and we are so happy that we got to have you on this podcast. I think
on Saturday, no less.
Yes, on Saturday, not Sunday, on a Saturday. And I think that Terrifier fans are really going to love this, all horror fans. And like I said, Pooya, you are an inspiration to this community and a great actor. And we are so looking forward to seeing where your career goes. And thank you so much for spending time with us and answering our questions. We really appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. I also hope the audience are going to be on the lookout of the new psychological thriller short I just did with Destry Spielberg, written by Owen King, who's Stephen King's son. So I just did a short film directed by Destry Allen Spielberg, written by Owen King, starring Hopper Penn, who's Sean Penn's son, and Brian Darcy James. So just be on the lookout within the next year.
Wow. What is the title of that? Or has it?
The original title was Let Me Go the Right Way, but it's being referred to in the webosphere as The Right Way. So it's either Let Me Go or The Right Way.
Let me go the right way.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Again, we will keep you updated as to when the episode is going to come out. And thank you again for your time. This has been really an incredible
I hope we get to do this again. I guess I have to do another horror film too.
We can't wait. And we'd love to speak with you again. But thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
We will definitely be in touch.
I look forward to it.
Okay, take care.
Have a great weekend, guys.
Saturday.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Happy Horror Time. This podcast is hosted by Matt Emmer and myself, Tim Murdoch. It's co-produced by Jacob Randall, who also hosts a great true crime podcast, Crime of Your Life.
Please check out our website, happyhorrortime.com, where you can stream all of our episodes and see all our pretty little episode images. You can also follow our social media pages on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Happy Horror Time.
We love hearing from our listeners, so if you want to contact us about one of our recent episodes, send us an email at happyhorrortime@gmail.com.
If you'd like to support this podcast, please sign up to be a patron at patreon.com/happyhorrortime. Patrons get access to our growing library of bonus episodes where we discuss older horror films, look back at popular franchises, and all kinds of other fun horror stuff.
I'm Tim Murdoch.
And I'm Matt Emmert, and we hope you have a happy horror time.